Hey everyone, I'm Lockie.
I'm Jack.
Cal.
Welcome to the first episode of a brand new discussion series, Game Gabs. We talk a ton in our group chat on Facebook and things like that, and basically we thought it'd be a great idea to bring some of those discussions to the internet where we can get roasted for them. So this is just an idea that we're trying out. We're going to try it for a little while, aiming for weekly videos with this. So just let us know what times are working, when you want us to upload and what topics you'd like to hear about. Also, of course, if you have any thoughts about the topic we are discussing in the video, chuck them down in the comments. We'd love to hear from you all.
Yeah, we can have a cheeky chat.
Exactly.
Me and you, the viewer.
Mm.
Not the other guys, just me.
You. Yeah,
You.
just Jack.
You know
the
who
rest
you
of us
are.
don't care about any of you at all.
Or your opinions.
So today we're just going to be discussing, we thought a good place to start was our favorite video game soundtracks. Given that this is, most of what the channel's been built off, it seemed like a good place for us to start. And also, not too likely to get us too roasted on our first time.
Because who has strong opinions about liking a song? I doubt anyone's going to turn like, you're an idiot because you like this music.
I don't know. One of my picks is from one of the most controversial parts of one of the most controversial games.
Just because the game is controversial doesn't mean they're going to be like, you like this song?
I think they might. Well, we'll see. We'll
find out.
Curious to see what that is.
Yeah,
if you disagree with me, please roast me. I want to see the most vicious roast you can give.
We could probably rag on about like 5 or 6 options, but that'll make this a 12-hour long video. So we're limiting it to 2 and a little bit of a third song.
Yeah, if we manage to.
Yeah,
depending on time.
We'll see how we go. We're aiming for an hour. Let's see what kind of damage we cause.
Yeah. All right. So
we should probably get started. I told everyone to grab a D20 because
yes,
we need to choose an order.
That is good. I was wondering how we were going to do that.
Yeah, I figured the easiest way to do it would be to roll a D20. Anyone want to show off the fanciness of the D20 they're rolling?
Oh, I did not get my fancy one.
Stock starter one.
Get wrecked. You all chose bad one. I chose my best one. Get wrecked.
I have so many nice ones and I just brought this thing.
Get wrecked. Well, show it off next week. I brought my fancy dragon scale dice from imaginaryadventures.com. You can probably buy some stuff there if you.
I'm very disappointed about this turn of events.
Get wrecked.
I don't know. There's something nice about just a see-through one that I like.
Yeah, it's good.
Right. Now, after you've spent over $100 on a single set of dice, say the same.
No one wants to see
that. All right,
everyone, roll.
Hiya.
Oof.
Oh my god! I got a fucking 1.
That's good for me because I got a 4.
I got a 6. Why am I going first with a 6?
That's amazing. The great one to start with. Okay, so round robin, Lockie, me, and Cal. So Lockie, tell us about what your first pick is.
All right. So starting at number 2, not our number 1 pick. Going to start with my second pick.
Fair.
I actually wanted to pick BioShock, the game, like the original BioShock. However, rather than just simply picking the original, I haven't finished it. So I decided instead that I was going to talk about both BioShock and BioShock Infinite, which I have played the entire way through and love the soundtrack from both. Part of the reason that I wanted to pick this one is actually because I use it a hell of a lot for D&D. Recently, you guys have been listening to a particular song, Lighter Than Air, pretty much on loop from BioShock Infinite.
Right, I did not know that.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite track from that game, just because it's got this really interesting mix of kind of sounding like a nursery rhyme, sounding really bright, but the harmony underneath is this absolute discordant mess. So it's simultaneously really unsettling and kind of beautiful, which is just the exact atmosphere to set for Colombia as a setting. So just like as soon as I heard that song, it just was like, it gives such an awesome feeling of this place is so not right, but is trying to hide it. So I think that's probably a good place for us to start, having a bit of a listen to that one.
Dope. Yes, I remember that now. And I
Yeah, so
even
do I.
remember what I said. For context, for reasons that will be revealed later, we are doing a run of Curse of Strahd at the moment, and Lockie's been using that for like the kind of town background, I think, from memory.
Yeah, for
It really suits it too.
For Valaki.
Yeah, and it's perfect for the setting of that game, because I remember hearing it and saying, I love how it's such a pleasant tune, but it's so discordant and dissonant in the background. Like, it's so creepy despite it being such a happy and bright tune. It's like, it's sick. I love it. I haven't even played Infinite yet.
It's the only sort of thing that we get that gives us some sort of, puts us at ease in the campaign. Like, oh, things are okay, but are they? I don't know.
Yeah, because you can everything's nice.
Yeah, no, that's exactly why I chose it for that town too, is because it's like, the whole, I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't played it, but like, that's the whole atmosphere of that town. It is very much that we're pretending everything's okay kind of feel, which is what, Colombia is as well, and all of that. And I think it might actually even have been you. Oh, maybe it wasn't you I was talking to about this, Cal. There was someone I was talking to about this song a while back, and talking about the fact that it keeps almost resolving. Like, you have like a moment where the discordantness kind of stops, and you have like the correct harmony underneath, and then it just comes back in, and it never quite lets you sit in that. It's like,
yeah.
oh no, wait, so the song's gonna, oh no, it didn't. Just
I did
constantly.
notice as it raised, like as that kind of dramatic shift between the intervals came in, when it's like da da da, when it gets to there, everything calms down for a second, and it's like, oh, it's finally no. It's
Yeah.
it gives you like half a
Exactly.
second to think, oh, everything's okay now.
Yeah, which actually does bring us fairly well to in, again, the other one in Bioshock Infinite, which we'll play a little less of, but which is another song that I do use frequently for D&D. I particularly like to use it for battles with anything that is kind of like in a dwarven city or something like that. It's a bit kind of mechanical sounding, which is the Songbird. I use that one all the time. It's within the game, again, not wanting to spoil the game for anyone who hasn't played this, nearly decade-old game, but within the game, the scene and the setting of that, it's this just such a tense moment, and it's like, things have exploded, things have gone wrong, but then you get yet another moment of peace, like you were in that song, and then this song starts to play, and things just go really, really badly.
That's awesome. That was great.
I don't even remember that. That's cool though.
I love the displaced percussion when the two tracks are happening at the same time. Like the one that's,
yeah,
but the other track, like I think it's that one that goes out slightly, and it's just so disjointed and it's really jarring. Like obviously you got the screeching violin stuff, which is sick, but that's very in your face, where the percussion is kind of like this added, oh, this is just wrong.
yeah. And yeah, like, I think, again, that's one of the most sort of, probably the most tense moment of the game up till that point. It's like when things really start to go to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah. I also love that it's called The Songbird, and that's what you hear.
yeah. Which again is, so much in the theme of Bioshock as a series and Infinite, where there's this whole, but Infinite particularly, where there's this whole kind of feeling that it's all the nastiness beneath the surface. So the pretty things like songbirds and things like that are not necessarily the safe things and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that for me is a big part of what I like in a video game soundtrack. I look less for catchy, memorable tunes, although that's very important, particularly in main themes. And I tend to look more for what creates a really cool atmosphere and things like that. The mood you want and that sort of thing. And Bioshock, with the use of strings and like that really strange discordant screeching, which is all over the first game, including in things like Steinman's Prelude and things like that.
Yeah, I was listening to that one and it reminded me a lot of some of the sections. I remember you and I were talking about the medical facility or whatever the song's name is called. It's got a very similar vibe to it in terms of just the harshness of it. And it's like, yes,
Dr. Steinman's the one I was thinking of. It's like his theme is, it's this whole like just super discordant violin.
Yeah, same kind of vibe. It's sick.
Which is about as far as I got in that game. So that's why I know that one so well.
I might have to put my own inclusion into your list. Just because it has to be there.
Yeah, I do agree. I don't think you can talk about Bioshock without talking about Cohen's masterpiece.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately I never got up to.
But I did. And oh boy. Boy. Coming to a Halloween not so near you because it's hard to play and I haven't learned it yet. Teaser for next year or later.
Because we are guitarists, not pianists.
I'm a pianist, just not it's a hard song, man.
Yeah, you're an everythingist. You get away with it.
It's true.
The jack of all trades.
Yeah.
The Jack of all trades.
Exactly.
Got anything else to show us?
No, I think that pretty much covers it for Bioshock. There is an aspect of the soundtrack that I have left out, which is the old-fashioned, like the the old, more sort of jazzy songs, the old vinyl-sounding recordings and things like that. However, many of those are actually a lot harder to find on YouTube because of they get copyright claimed.
Yes, of course. We can't put it on YouTube because we will get copyright claimed.
Exactly. So rather than including those in the video, I just wanted to mention with those that they, once again, like it adds to these themes that we're talking about, where it's like this kind of old-fashioned time, which often we view in like rose-colored glasses and that sort of thing. Like when we watch period shows, they're always pretty and nice. Like people loved Downton Abbey because it looked so nice and everything, although it wasn't actually, the story was not so nice. But yes, I watched Downton Abbey. It's a good show. Don't at me.
I watched it too.
Yeah,
I didn't. My mother did, but I didn't.
Good. But yeah, so like the inclusion of those songs again with the vinyl scratch sound and everything, it creates a similar effect, but also sets the specific time setting of Bioshock, which is pretty important.
Yeah. Well, I think we should close off with just a little bit of Cohen's masterpiece.
All right.
It's got we kind of have to. So good. Anyways,
man, I need to play Bioshock again. I don't remember any of these songs.
Listening to all these soundtracks, that's once I finish Horizon, that's probably the next. I'm going to actually finally play the trilogy.
Right. Homework. You two play the first Bioshock and I'll play Infinite.
Yeah.
No, I got to do Horizon next, I think.
I think you do have to do Horizon next.
If you
I'm
don't,
going to have
never
finished
stop
all the
hearing
DLC and New Game Plus before you actually ever start the game.
God.
Probably.
Yeah, I have already played 20 hours of New Game Plus.
Oh, wow.
Next.
All right.
Nice.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I'm next. I was going to say, Callum, what's yours? And then I realized I'm next. Cool. So I originally had a different second choice, but I figured there was less to say about it. It'd mostly be comparing versions, which I'll still show it off a little bit. So I changed my second choice to Rayman 2. One of my favorite games ever because the game is sick. I specifically played Rayman Revolution on the PS2, which is basically a quote unquote remaster. I think it actually is a remaster. Like I think all the graphics have been touched up and improved because it was originally on like the N64, PS1, and Dreamcast. So it's an older game, and they just redid everything. I think they even got the voice actor who did Rayman 3 and Rayman M/Arena to do Rayman's voice in that game, which is also awesome and horrible because some of the voice tracks in that game are fantastic. I'll put one in the video because it's just the best. Glowbox! It's so good. It's something like that. But oh my God, the music in that game. Like I chose it because it just covers so many grounds. At times it's atmospheric, it's really thematic, and there's such cool rhythms in there, and they blend all these tunes together so well. That's why I have like 6 tracks to go through. So we're not going to listen to all of them in full. We're just going to listen to them bit by bit. But I want to start with, because it's probably the most appropriate because it's the start of the game, I want to start with how it's kind of a bit more atmospheric. As soon as I can find the right one, here it is. So this is like the first proper level of the game. Yeah, and that's just kind of the vibe of the soundtrack. Like, they're not always so acoustically driven as that one, or even like tribally percussive. They kind of go in different directions. And I love the percussive additions. Like, most of it is just chords, just the same 2 chords going through, and just with little differences to kind of build that atmosphere. But then it sprinkles in the theme, like that dum 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 da da and that dum dum da 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 dum. Those are all variations of the main theme of the song, which is just kind of interspersed between different levels, and it's awesome. Like, that level's like a lush green area with like, it's got like poison water in some sections, and it's when you're looking for Glowbox, and it's awesome. And it'll intersperse with running into pirate themes, running into pirates, and then the music will just change, and it'll change to this. And that kind of music comes in every time you run into a robot pirate. And it breaks up the pace a little bit, makes it a little bit more intense. And I love the rock-driven thing when they come in. And they're such like, I think they're very punk robo pirates. It's very cyberpunk kind of thing, and it's like sick.
Yeah. I think the really cool thing that I could kind of see with that too was that, like, I mean, you said what they were just then, but you like almost didn't have to. Like, I could have told you that the first track was a jungle level. I heard it and could have just said that. Just based off the use of the acoustic guitar and all the tribal drums and all that sort of thing. And I love that low C from the guitar. That was not a C, I just sang. I'm not a bass. I'll get over it.
Not my day for it.
What about you, Cal? Do you sing a C?
I don't sing anything.
Can you fart a C?
Oh, probably, yeah. I think I can actually fart a C flat.
Sick.
That would be a B.
I feel like everything you'd fart.
No, there's the one in between. You don't know about it, but I've discovered it.
Cool. But yeah, like, and also just even the fact that there's robot pirates is truly bizarre, but I'm just impressed that they didn't write the pirate theme in 6A.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't think anything pirate related in the song, in the game musically, is the stereotypical pirate thing. I think it usually goes for the very mechanical steampunk vibe, because that's what they are.
Right.
And so they are very, yeah, because like, the robot.
Have you played this, Lockie? Have you played it, Lockie?
No, I mean, I think I played bits of it years ago, and
Okay.
I own it.
It is one of your Christmas games, yeah.
It is.
Play it.
Yeah. But no, I haven't played it yet. I do actually remember that level. Because I think, is that early on in the game?
First one.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say,
the
I
one
remember,
that I showed before is the first one. Yeah,
I remember actually playing that level, and yeah, I have, but not enough. Let's put it that way.
That's all right.
It's a good
We'll get
game.
there eventually. I'll just nag you like you've been nagging Cal. But yeah, like just the variation between the different songs and the way that it uses themes. And one of my favorite things is like how it'll just completely shift the pacing. Like you've got this big robot pirate battle where you're trying to infiltrate their base, and then when you do, it plays this. Yeah, and I love how tense it is, and how all of the little sounds in the background are creating the setting of where you are. And it's also, despite the funkiness to it, it's very sneaky, because like the funkiness is kind of like a more, I don't know what the word is, but like exciting, uplifting version of I'm trying to sneak around without being seen. But then you've got this like tense strings, like, oh, there's danger everywhere. And it's like,
It kind of reminds me of like a heist film or something.
Yeah.
A little
yeah.
bit.
100%. It reminds me actually of Sly Cooper.
Yeah, that's good.
It's
analogy.
very similar to the Sly Cooper soundtrack.
I love it. And yeah, like it's just the way that it jumps between them all. There's only one more full track I want to show you. I'm not going to show you all of it, but this is kind of like one of the standouts because it's such a creepy piece of music, and it's usually talked about with the music of this game, just to kind of add to the variety that's in there. This one's a bit longer, so I might intersplice bits of the song because it's a long song. But the Cave of Bad Dreams, where you were chased by all kinds of horrors filled with ghost acid waters and one-eyed stick-armed freaks.
It is a weirdly scary game, isn't it?
It's
section,
so
yeah.
dark. Yeah.
And the zombie chickens, oh my god. Check this out. And there's this like big chase sequence towards the end because the guy, like when you walk in, he says, "You like there's treasure at the end of this place, but I will catch you and kill you." And even though mechanically he's not chasing you, it feels like he is. It's like I just need to get through here. And
Is
then
that the teeth on the screen?
that comes later, yeah. It feels like he's chasing you in that section. The music gives this kind of sense of you need to get through here, you're going to die. It's not how it works in game. There's a written point where he catches you, but it doesn't feel that way, and it's terrifying. Kid me, I reckon that's why I can play games so quickly, is because Kid me was just like, I gotta get through here. And he finally caught up to me, and it's a sliding sequence, and he's got the big gnarly teeth going after you. I'm like, please no. It's just
that was pretty messed up.
Yeah. And yeah, there's not much else I want to talk about. I just want to kind of show two more things. One is like it's kind of got that like Zelda, Mario, Crash Bandicoot style jingle when certain things happen. And it's the main theme of the song. Every time you activate a switch or unlock a secret, it plays this bit. And I love it. It's just so jolly and cheerful. And it's like, oh man. And that's just the kind of soundtrack it is.
Jolly and
Is that when it
cheerful,
plays a
really?
little cutscene of like a door opening or something.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's like a Zelda style secret uncovered. Every time you open a switch or you solve a puzzle, it plays that, and it's like, oh, things are okay for a second.
It's
And
interesting that it feels that way to you. That sound bite to me actually sounded a little bit kind of discordant, like happy, and then it was like, oh,
yeah,
that kind of went a little off again.
A little bit of tension in there, but I think the instrumentation kind of helps with that. It's just a lot lighter than a lot of the other things, but harmonically, you're right. Yes,
I think no, but even the instrumentation for me, that kind of like woodwindy kind of sound to me often actually sounds like, you know, it reminds me of places like Dagobah and things like that, which often you heavily use those like lower kind of orchestrations. Now that's obviously fairly, you know, sort of mid range, but it still has that effect on me where I actually heard that and kind of like the start was bright, but then it was like, oh, but you're still in a bad place.
Yeah.
At the end there.
Yeah.
Well, you don't know what you're about to walk into.
Yeah, exactly.
Open area.
It's the classic thing where you've just found a health potion, but does that mean I'm about to fight a boss?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, you've done well. You wish you had it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's most of what I wanted to say. I just wanted to close off with one more song because it shows how all of these elements tie together. This probably the most melodic piece in the whole game is the Precipice, which is this big chase scene where you're being chased by the robot pirate ship, and it's like blowing up the platforms behind you, and you're diving into this crevasse, and it's just like such a cool section of the game. And it's got probably the most I don't want to say like I don't know what word I'm looking for, like digestible portion of music, because it's more in line with like there's constant melody, it's obvious it's very singable, where the rest of the soundtrack really isn't, but it just kind of puts together all these themes that it builds, and it just works so well. So I'll again just cut in sections here to kind of say what I mean. It just really kind of accentuates everything that's going on in that soundtrack into one piece, and it's such a good game. God,
it is a sick.
I'll play it, Jack. I'll play it.
Play it, damn you! Do it now.
All right,
stop the video. Leave. Anyways, that's more or less everything that I had to say. But yeah, sick game. Clum. What's your second?
It's probably no surprise. My second favorite game soundtrack is gonna have to go to Ocarina of Time.
Second favorite.
Nice. Yeah.
Lockie, just talk about the music, nothing else. You're not allowed to speak about the quality of the game, just the music.
Yeah, I know. We really shouldn't talk about the quality of the game because, like, you know,
don't do it.
I
know what you're doing. Don't do it. You'll regret it. Trust me.
Want to keep the conversation positive.
So, yeah, I guess the way that I came to my conclusions were sort of which games the songs have sort of stayed with me after playing them. And this is the oldest game in my list of my top 3. And it's mostly because I feel that each area of the game you're in, the music just directly narrates what you're seeing on the screen. Like,
yeah,
you can close your eyes and hear the music, and you'll be thinking, like you said before, you can think of a jungle or anything like that. And it's just the immersion thing, I think, for the game.
And it's all just so memorable. Like
it's
every
so
single
memorable.
song.
Yeah.
I
It's
will even I'll agree with that. Like, as much as, yeah, you know, if you didn't pick it up from before, I actually do not like Zelda games. But the soundtrack for Ocarina of Time, even from what I played of it, including the fact that like some of the gameplay is built around the soundtrack, is pretty awesome.
yeah, like the warping songs are always cool, and I still remember like learning these on guitar as a kid, and being like, oh, sick, I can play these Zelda songs. Like they're pretty easy melodies, but like, yeah, just
and you've
awesome
got that
stuff.
whole thing with Hyrule Field when we were like when you were arranging it, because the song is shifted to what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. Like when there's an enemy around and there's something, you know, the music goes real tritony and evil.
Yeah, sick soundtrack.
So I guess my first example would have to go to the title theme from the game when you start it up.
Oh man.
Just because it does that. Like there's just such a longing nature to it. It never really feels like it's settled. There's something, it's very tranquil, but nothing really peaceful about it. Like there's such a scary and massive journey you're about to go on. You're not really sure. It starts off, you're a kid, and it's kind of like this is, you know, boy gets the sword and shield, goes and kills the monsters, like that kind of thing. It's kind of innocent, and the more you play it, to the point where you're like, you know, going through what people are claiming is, you know, an old abandoned torture chamber for prisoners of war and stuff, that being the Shadow Temple. There's some really creepy, dark things that you find later on. And I think that title theme kind of captures that. It's like, where's this going kind of thing.
Yeah. Man,
so good.
My opinions on the game shift every now and then. I still always at least like the game. It kind of changes based on don't worry about it, Lucky. It always changes based on like what I've been playing and the mood I'm in, I guess. But like I have some loves and flaws with that game, but oh man, that song genuinely makes me emotional. I love it so much. And like it's so rooted in Nintendo history as well. Like it was the flute song in the original Zelda, wasn't it?
In Mario 3, you mean?
I think it was in the. I could be wrong, but I think it was in the original Zelda game as well.
Yeah. Okay.
Like when you got, I think when you got a flute, it played da 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 da. I could be wrong, but it's definitely in Mario 3.
I haven't played the original Zelda, truth be told.
I played it however long ago because I was trying to play every game in the series, but then halfway through Wind Waker, I think Crash Team Racing came out or something. Shut up. Another game came out, I forget what it was, that was super hyped to play, and I started playing that, and I abandoned my run through the whole series. I've played most of the games, but there's still a few that I need to get through. But I love that song so much. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but that's probably sound-wise one of my favorite arrangements that we've ever done. I just love it. It sounds so good.
Probably the most watched Game Boys video that I go back and watch is that one.
Well, I'm glad to hear it. I think it's just because you like watching me get sprayed by a bloody full blast by a hose.
I enjoyed doing the spraying more than I enjoy watching it. But
I'm sure you did.
Yeah. Mine's definitely not. That's definitely not my most watched. But I think the complete lack of nostalgia for the song doesn't help with that.
Yeah, it's probably that.
Yeah. But what I will say, even as someone who, as I said, you know, doesn't like the game, and for anyone who comments, I have tried. Cal and Jack have been trying to get me to like Zelda for a while.
Taste is taste, man. You don't have to like a game. It's fine.
But I've never been able to get into them, and
just forever know that you're
another
wrong,
topic of conversation. Let us know if you want to hear us discussing whether or not Zelda's good.
Nope. I refuse.
I feel like I'd have to just mediate, but still agree with Jack most of the time.
That would be so entertaining.
I think it'd make more sense if I mediate, because I probably would talk about more flaws than you would.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is that track is very emotional, and it does sort of like lend into that kind of world atmosphere of the world, which is sort of strangely sad. Like the entire atmosphere of that game is strangely sad. It's just a shame the story and content.
Well, it's a dark game, man. Like the second half of that game is like, wow, everything's fucked.
Yeah, you needed to get up to that point. You needed to get there.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
the
you
fact
didn't
that I
get
have to
there.
get through like
In
many
fairness-
hours of boredom.
In fairness, while I definitely don't think it's that bad, the
It's
kid
for me.
dungeons are probably kind of like whatever.
The
man.
only good one's Dodongo's cabin.
Yeah,
my
and
opinion.
oh man,
And
I
it's still
do not
boring.
love Jabu Jabu's belly. I really don't. That's probably my least favorite
Dungeon in the whole game, I'd agree.
These are
Probably.
words
I'd
that
have
I
to
do
think
not
about
know.
it. Yeah, well, you never made it that far enough to have to put up with that, but you also
I
done all the
got
good
up to
stuff
the
that came
point where
after.
I spoke to the person that the game is named after for some reason.
Yeah.
And
You mean the main
Then-
character, Zelda,
Oh, okay, yeah.
the one you
Yeah.
play as in
yeah,
the green
exactly. The one you
Zelda.
play as. Yeah, yeah. The one who goes, yeah.
Yeah.
That's Zelda, right? Isn't it? That's Zelda.
Yeah, I think I also hate those dungeons because of the amount of times I've played the game and like you're just like, oh, I hate doing this again. Like I feel like I've played those through the most.
And I will add, one of the reasons I ended up quitting on the game was because I ended up having to do the freaking tree 4 times.
Yeah.
And I just was like, I cannot do this. If the appeal of this game is the dungeons, I'm done.
Well, Cal, why don't you tell us about some dungeons you do like?
Yes, indeed. Back on the music.
Okay, I actually picked a dungeon song from this. So,
That was why I did that.
okay. Well, oh yeah, I forgot
I
to
didn't
sing
know,
the
but
lyrics.
Jack's spying on us all.
Yeah.
So yeah,
got
chuck
the
it on.
list.
Water Temple. So this is quite a divisive dungeon among the Zelda community because it's bullshit hard if you don't know your way around it.
It's a maze, and you have to switch to your damn boots every 2 seconds.
Yeah, they did fix that on the DS, which
Yes.
some people would call blasphemy, but yeah. And the water, you got to change the water level. Like there's so much stuff that if you do one thing wrong, there's so much backtracking. It's a real pain in the ass. But I think it's got the best song in it because the music sounds like water. It sounds weird, but it sounds like water. And it's also, the temple's sort of, it's hard to explain if you haven't seen it, but the whole center of it is a tower and it's like a really Asian inspired architecture. And it just feels like it doesn't fit. Like it's something really weird about this temple, I think, in the game. And the music's really weird too. But for some reason, I've always just thought it was really cool. And the music really describes what you're seeing on the screen. So.
And I will actually, if I can, just before that, add that the sounds like water thing. When I worked on writing for Chroma Shift and when I was doing the circus music that I used to do for a while, those
Circus music.
yeah, I wrote circus music. One of the ooh, focus. There we go. One of the briefs I got for Chroma Shift was water. And that one was the one that took me the most attempts. It was so hard to write, and it's still the one I'm least happy with at the end. So it's a really, really tough thing to actually write something that sounds like water. It's really hard. So I'm actually pretty keen to hear this.
Imagine sounding like water with a giant friggin' Asian tower.
Yeah, okay.
And this song sounds like that.
Cool.
So, yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm really keen now.
Man,
Yeah, it's pretty nuts.
I love the two obviously different things that are happening. You've got this because the thing that I've always noticed is, and I think it's because they both represent a fairly empty and free void, is that water and space music go really well together. If you put that to an outer space setting until the other stuff starts happening, it works. It works just as well for that. But then when you bring in that kind of like more dissonant oriental kind of sound to it, I don't know if that's the right word, but whatever.
No, that works.
Yeah. It just like, it creates a new vibe for it. It's almost like a swamp kind of vibe.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah, those little dissonant kind of like chromatic steps and stuff does sound pretty swampy.
Yeah, and I love how they're I love how the tone, the I don't know what word I'm looking for. The thematicism in there, and even the rhythm is completely displaced of what's happening on the other side of things. But the two kind of just jump at each other. And it's got this kind of clashing thing that works, and it's like, help.
And things like, if you listen to it, the way it's orchestrated, things come in and out just with volume swells. It's like, water lapping at something, or
There's also those chimes.
That effect that chimes, but there's also like an effect on some of the background stuff. I don't even know. I guess
it's like
maybe
a delay with a pitch shift as well. Like it's getting lower as it delays. Fades away.
It could be that. It was a strange effect. I'd have to listen to it more to actually know exactly what that was. But yeah, it was like that. I thought that was a very cool way of creating that water sound.
So yeah, that was. I wanted to pick a dungeon song, and I feel like there are so many great ones, but that one wins for me in terms of just really being able to describe what you're seeing with sound, and that's how I picked all of my choices for tonight. So.
And I think it's a really good thing to consider when so much of the song is like in your face memorable. It's great to look at the ones that are less memorable and catchy because the melody is less like specifically something that you would be able to sing off the top of your head. You kind of take in that more atmospheric stuff for a second. And it's like, man, this just creates such a strong atmosphere. And it's less distracting than like the Soraya's, like the Lost Woods,
exactly.
Where it's like, oh yeah, and you're always ever present about what's happening in the music. In this one, it just creates atmosphere, and that's all it needs, and it's great.
Yeah, it's sick. And most of the dungeons do, like the themes do work that way, but just not as good as this one, in my opinion.
I feel like we'd be remiss to talk about Zelda without talking about the song, though.
The song?
The song.
Yeah.
I don't remember which one this was, but the one where there was the big argument about the rhythm.
No, we're not talking about that. I've already got that. Oh wait, no, we got two of them. The best thing is we've had two Zelda discussions, and I'm going to talk about the other one that we had.
Awesome.
I almost chose that song. I literally thought about it just to troll you guys.
I feel like we just need to like clip in a bit of the song here.
Yeah, I'll chuck it in, but
like
basically, Cal feels like it's da 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 da.
Oh, that one, yeah, okay.
Da 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 da. But Cal feels it as da 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 da. And it's like I see that. But as soon as the melody comes in, it's just like, what the hell are you talking about?
I know I'm wrong. I just can't feel it. It's just so.
That's all right. On the flip side,
Cal's a drummer. The other, we are not.
His thing should be timing. On the flip side of that, we had a similar discussion about a different Zelda song, which we'll talk about later, where Cal was actually right and basically ruined the song for me.
Yeah.
I just think it sounds worse now that I know how it actually probably feels, and I'm like, oh man, I liked it better the way it was.
You should edit two transcriptions side by side in the video and see which people actually.
This is meant to be low effort, Cal. I'm not doing that. Stop it. Anyways, how about you close us off with one more?
Okay. I feel like in the grand scheme of things, it's a little bit of a lackluster song from this game. It's just,
I don't know about that.
I spent most of my child life playing it, being in this area, and it's just really nice. And I guess it's got an innocent vibe. And
well, I was about to say is you say it's lackluster, but I honestly think thematically it's one of the stronger songs because it's a very childish, uplifting piece, and it's like you are Link, you are a child amongst a village of children.
What song are we talking about?
Well, I'm going to play it here.
Kokiri Forest. So,
Kokiri Forest.
It's
You would have heard this, Lockie, a lot.
That's the thing. That's where the game starts you off, and you're like, oh, boy going on a journey, playing with sticks and stuff at the start. It doesn't seem like it's going to become the game that it does. And this song is just a huge sort of representation of that childlike innocence. And everyone in the town or village, whatever you want to call it, is a child. There are no grown-ups. It's so
You'll
that's why I
definitely be
chose
able to
the song.
hear it. Yeah. I love it. It's great.
Yeah, cool song. And
Probably the
I
song
think
of
a lot
Lockie's
of the-
nightmares, but I love it.
On the flip side, that legit made me feel like frustrated. That song started and I felt myself physically becoming
Yeah.
frustrated.
If anyone doesn't understand Lockie's issue, it's because of the way that the game saves. If you turn the game off, it just puts you back at your house. So
That's
you
not
have
the
to
only issue, but that's
yeah.
a big one.
you have to go all the way back from Kiri Forest to wherever you were, and it could be
But
the other side of
if
the world.
if you gave the game a chance, you would get warp songs, and you would just warp to
Yes.
Evo.
Yes, I
because
think
having
about
to play
4
through
to
half the
5
game to
hours
not
into
hate-
the game.
Yeah. That is
Assuming
a
you know
valid
what you're
point,
doing.
though. It is a
Yeah.
valid point.
Anyways,
So yeah, I guess that brings us to the end of that.
no,
That's-
great soundtrack. Koji Kondo is a genius. I love him. He's amazing.
And I think the magic of a lot of that song is, as a good example, is they only go for like a minute and then they just loop, but they don't really become too monotonous until you notice it or until like the game frustrates you or if you just don't like it from the start. But for me, like they don't feel like they only go for a minute. They feel like they go for ages.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I mean, that particular song, that last one you played, is one that I did notice. But again, that's because I was so sick of that town that I wanted to neck myself. I also couldn't find the way out.
Yeah.
Like I had no
yeah.
idea where to go.
I think your hatred of the song is more a commentary on the game than the song.
Yeah, I absolutely. Although that
Yeah.
said, the song's also a little bit on like it's thematically good, but it's a little bit on the.
Yeah.
I
If you
listen
heard
to
it on
metal
repeat
and
for like an
sad
hour.
music.
But no, even if you like if you played that to someone for an hour, they'd probably lose it
Yeah.
pretty quick because it's a short
There's a-
song.
There's a challenge. Anyone in the
No.
comments, let us know if you can listen to that song on loop for an hour.
And you
I think I
can't
probably
be
have
super
done.
you can't be super nostalgic for the game. It has to be
Yeah, yeah.
someone who hasn't played it.
Yeah,
Listen
see
to
if
it
you
on
can get
repeat.
someone who hasn't played the game to put up with the
See
song for
how
an
long
hour.
it takes for them to go insane or whatever. Or maybe they love it. Maybe they
Yeah.
only want to listen to that song anymore.
Yeah,
Anyways, I think that brings us back to Luke Lynn.
that is me. All right. So for my number one pick, this is much like a little bit more like Cal's pick. Where my first one with BioShock, like I really like BioShock Infinite, but as I said, I hadn't played the original. So those games, it was more about I find the soundtrack really creative and that sort of thing, rather than it necessarily being nostalgia or anything like that. This one's the exact opposite. I just finished my 8th playthrough of the Mass Effect trilogy.
From one unpopular opinion to another.
Yeah, I'm gonna. I told you, roast me. Yeah, look, I just finished my 8th playthrough of the Mass Effect trilogy, and yes, the whole trilogy, including the ending of 3. And the game soundtrack that I'm picking here is Mass Effect 3, specifically Mass Effect 3. And that's what I know I will get a lot of disagreement on, but my reasoning is not purely nostalgia, though that is a large part of it. When that game came out back 2012, 2011, I think it was 2012, I think. That was like, I was in year 10 or something, and it was just, that was all I did. Every night I'd go home, I'd play through the story, and then I'd play the multiplayer with a mate of mine, and then I'd play the story again, and that was all I did. That was my life, basically. Who cared about homework? Mass Effect was life. And the biggest moment for me, and the biggest thing about Mass Effect 3 as a game, which is why, yes, it's my favorite of the trilogy, is the emotional aspects of it. So I've never played a game, and I think me and Cal, actually, we spoke about this recently. I don't think I've ever played another game that's made me feel as much as Mass Effect did. Specifically Mass Effect 3, which of course built off the previous games and all that sort of thing. But the biggest moment for that, the moment that just kind of was a gut punch to me, was as you're in the opening segment of the game, flying away from Earth on the Normandy, looking back at the shuttles being shut down by the Reapers, having just left Anderson behind. Spoilers. But leaving
Save it
Earth
after the spoilers.
Yeah, whatever. It's 8 years old. The
Yeah,
song
it's-
"Leaving
yeah.
Earth" that plays there is probably my single favorite video game piece of music of all time, to the point that I've arranged it in now like 3 or 4 different ways. So yeah.
Sick.
I mean, it's
My
so
my
simple.
thoughts, yeah, like, well, I think all of us enjoyed Mass Effect 3. I'm pretty sure, like, a lot.
Yeah.
I probably, whilst I really enjoyed, like, I really like Mass Effect 3, I probably enjoyed it the least of all of us, because I've got my qualms with it, as I'm sure everyone does. But man, like, I think a lot of it is to do with there's so much emotional depth to it, and a lot of it is just that the characters in that game, minus Male Shep, because I'm sorry, man, you tried, really tried. The characters in the game are just so well built, and it's such a game focused on building these relationships that every kind of beat like this just has so much impact to it. And I love how it's a really sad song, but you can't forget why. It's not just sad because everything's gone wrong. You need to remember the depth of everything that's going wrong. So you've got dun 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 just to remind you, yeah, everything's real shit right now, but you're real sad about it.
It's also just the thing that I find with this soundtrack as a whole, and there's much less diversity in the ME3 soundtrack than I actually think there is even to like the ME2 one or the ME1 one, or even Bioshock that I was talking about before. And or the games you guys have mentioned. It's far more sort of grand orchestral space opera sort of soundtrack. But the thing for me about the soundtrack as a whole is there's this constant feeling of simultaneous hope and helplessness,
And
which I
urgency.
think is urgency. Yeah, hope's maybe not the right word. It's more like
I honestly, I
determination.
reckon,
Determination's probably the better word.
I was going to say, I think the main themes of the game are hope and determination.
Yeah.
And that's like the whole thing that the human race is built on. That's their virtues of the human race in that game as opposed to the other races.
Yes, exactly. And it's, to me, like that's what that track captures so well, is that, when the big, orchestral lines, the big long slow melodies are coming in towards the end, it feels sad, but it feels like it's kind of pushing forward to something. It doesn't just feel bleak and hopeless, but at the same time it does. It's a really, they get that balance really perfect.
It does give you that sense of like you're pushing towards victory, but you can lose at any time.
Yeah, and also that victory, but at what cost?
Exactly.
Kind of feeling too. Which actually does bring me quite well to the 2 others I want to bring up. There's 3 others, but we'll see how we go for time. A big one for me, and this is actually one that a lot of people won't have heard, and I actually hadn't until quite recently, which is I'm Sorry. This one plays at a very, very specific point in the game that 60% of players didn't see. spoilers, like, I know I spoiled a fair bit for the start of the game just before, but this is huge spoilers. So if you actually haven't played the game and you're intending to, just skip forward a bit. We'll maybe like put a timestamp on the video for when to skip
Or
forward
even
to.
better, stop, play the game, come back.
Yes. Yes.
Nothing else. Stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
Complete the game. No
whole
breaks.
Whole trilogy. You have to
Whole trilogy. Sorry, you need context.
Yeah.
It's only like, what, 100 hours plus. Come back, keep watching this video. And then go eat food or whatever.
Yeah. This is the track that plays when the biggest and most divided choice in the actual game happens, which is when the conflict between the Geth and the Quarians is being decided. If you do not make the right choices and you actually are forced to choose between the two races, over 30% of players, 36% of players got this option, choosing the Geth.
Yeah, I've never heard it.
And that's what I mean. Most players have never heard it, and it's especially in the context of the scene. So
I'm keen to give it a listen.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many emotions in that.
Yeah.
like, it starts off like really climactic and like, oh, it's one or the other. And then it's almost victorious. And then it goes back to like, oh God. And then it's like, yikes.
Yeah.
That happened.
And that track, I believe, marks the only point in the entire franchise when a Paragon interrupt fails. So even if you press the button, it doesn't work. And the bad thing you were trying to avoid happens anyway, which, again, I'm sort of trying to tiptoe around spoilers, but basically, trying not to say too much here, that song marks the end of a race and the death of a player, not a player character, of one of the main characters. That's been with Shepard for a long time and all that sort of thing. So it's
arguably some of the best of those main characters too.
Arguably probably up there as one of the most liked main characters.
My second favorite main character.
Yeah. It's so that, and I'll encourage anyone watching this who's played the game but hasn't seen that scene, go and look it up on YouTube.
I don't want it there. I don't want to.
I'm probably going to do that when we finish.
I don't want to see that there.
It's actually so devastating.
That's why I don't want to watch it.
And there's some of the things about it too, like some of the things that they do in that scene are actually the same as in the victory scene, but the context is flipped on its head, and that's part of what makes it so devastating, having seen both. And it's, I almost think it's a shame that only 30% of players ever heard that track and saw that scene. But at the same time, the cost is so high.
And the worst part is that thematically, if you consider the conflict that's happening there, that's probably the most, without intervention, that's the most reasonable end that would come to. Yeah. The only thing that stops that is the player intervention. And it's like, man... Yeah, and it's what would have been if you hadn't done anything about it, and in this case, you didn't.
And as well, like putting aside the option to get the optimal ending and make peace and all that, that is actually the most chosen option. So it is the most, but it's very divided. It's like 36% to 28% sort of thing. So it's like, yeah, it's to me that when I actually finally saw that scene and heard that song, I was like, man, part of me, the masochist in me almost wishes this was like the forced choice in the game, not the and that song, as you said, like the way it moves, like that sudden major turn where it feels kind of triumphant, and then it just drops down to just piano, and it's like, ugh. But yeah. There's others I could talk about in the game. I could probably talk about every single track in this game, but instead of doing that, I will mention the track "I'm Proud of You" is a big one for me as well. But I don't actually think we need to play that so much. And End Once and For All, no matter what your opinion of the actual ending of that game, is a fantastic piece of music for the climax. But it's similar enough to what we've already shown that I don't think we need to show it. On the other hand, I do want to jump back to Mass Effect 1.
Well, just quickly, my suggestion would be for all of these songs, if you're interested in really understanding what we're talking about, listen through the whole thing. Obviously, we can't tell you to play all of these games. Maybe put them on your bucket.
Play all of the Mass Effect trilogy. Play
Do
the
it.
Mass Effect trilogy.
All of the games we're talking about, play them right now, then
Yes.
come back to this video. No breaks.
Except Ocarina of Time, it's boring.
But like I would suggest playing all of these games, definitely. But at the very least, have a listen to the full versions of these songs. Like, we're listening to more that's going to make it into the video. I'm just going to cut out what's important, because otherwise this video will be 10 hours long. But yeah, check them out, because there's some really sick stuff.
Yeah. But yeah, to round off Mass Effect, I will actually jump back to Mass Effect 1. Because the main reason that I chose Mass Effect 3 over the other two in the trilogy is because I do not find the songs from the previous two games as emotionally or melodically memorable, with the sole exception of this particular track, which reappears throughout the entire trilogy and kind of became like almost the default main theme of the series. And I know what
you're talking about.
Yeah. And it is just where the others are these big orchestral emotional roller coasters, this one really does kind of capture the sci-fi universe that is Mass Effect in a way that I think the others kind of don't. So Vigil's theme from the first game and from the whole trilogy is awesome.
When Lockie did his arrangement, I nagged him to put it in there. And we snuck it in at the end with that Ebo part, and I was so happy that I got to play it. I was like, yes!
Yeah.
I love it. And I love, like, I don't know if what I'm saying is correct, but it's kind of got this, like, Middle Eastern vibe to it.
Yeah, that kind of...
but it just sounds...
sound...
Very quick trills that are, like, almost inaudible. They're, like, ghost notes even. Yeah. And it's just, oh, man. I love that song! Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what, like, you've got the synthy kind of sounds and this really sort of lush, spacious sound, which kind of adds to that, space opera theme sort of thing. But those little trills and things like that, and the couple of sort of scale shifts where it's like it's not just strictly major, it has a few of those sort of... I'd have to analyze the song a bit better, but it drops some of those notes down to changes that and all that, which kind of creates this almost, it makes it feel alien, but in a strangely not like little gray aliens coming to abduct you kind of way. In like there's this whole universe out there is kind of how that song feels to me.
It feels very expansive, considering how limited it is compared to some of the other stuff we listen to. It's great. Exactly. Well, I think, I don't want to rag on it too long, because otherwise we'll be gone for a stupid amount of time. But I think the biggest thing between Mass Effect 1, 2, and then of 3 is 3 kind of has this very emotional, story-driven score, because it's this climax of all of these things that we've come to learn. Whereas the first 2 is so much about setting and world building in a musically thematic sense. Yeah. And that's why I love the soundtrack of all 3, because I think the first 2 really need that. because the first one is setting up the
Yeah.
world.
No, I agree.
The second game is investing you in the world and the characters, and then the third game is bringing that all together and streamlining where this plot has been building to. And I think all three work perfectly for their own games.
I agree. I agree 100%.
Yeah.
I love the soundtrack of the first two games as well. It's just, for me, it's always been the emotional impact that the soundtrack of 3 had. It's the only game where I could practically tell you the name of every single track that plays. And to your point though, the tracks that we listen to and all of the ones that I point out as being my favorites all play during cutscenes.
Yeah.
None of them are background music for a level or anything like that. They are scripted to a particular cutscene.
Well, that's
so it's
because that's the importance that it's trying to sell.
Exactly.
It needs to be
And
big and emotional.
yeah, and actually replaying through the trilogy recently, as I did, a lot of the gameplay elements of the game are silent. They actually don't have music.
Man, I kind of want to play it again just because of the songs. I'm not gonna lie, it has that effect. Like talking about the games never makes me want to go, I really want to play this, but like listening to the songs just reminds me of the characters and so much of the story build that I'm like, really want to go back to that.
Yeah.
But the problem I have is I want to play it the same way that I've already played.
I would struggle not to play it the same way again.
Yeah, like same companions that I mainly use, same romance interest, everything. Because I was like, it was so good. I just want to do it again.
Actually, I'd probably do Femshep and like Romance Thane or Garrus.
Definitely do
I want you
Femshep.
to try that, but I romance Tali, and I don't think that's an option. So it's like,
no, it isn't. Wanting to
romance Garrus, problem solved.
Yeah. After finishing this playthrough though, I was like, man, it's been really cool to like try the other romances and try some other things. Now I really want to go back to my first Shepherd and go back to Femshep and go back to Liara and just like go back to my canon playthrough again, because I just tried all these other things, but yeah.
I feel like Liara's the canon companion anyway. Like
she's definitely the most favored in MA3.
It feels like the story wants you to go that way.
I feel like it's the most well balanced in the sense that two kind of, I don't want to say it ruins, but it puts a big chunk in trying to make a relationship last between Ashley or Caden. And it's just a bit weird. It's probably one of my only main about ME2, even though that's my favorite of the three. But Liara is more consistent. You can have that chunk based on your decisions, but you don't have to. Whereas the other two, you kind of are forced to be like, well, this is in the shitter for now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like,
as you add in... Oh, yeah. And as soon as you add in the Shadowbreaker DLC as well, it really feels like Liara can continue. Whereas
the other two, it's like
the long distance thing.
Like, because when I played it, I started with Ashley, and then 2 happened, and my plan was to stick with Ashley. But then I was like, man, that just seems like such a we're done. I don't want to do that again. And I loved Tali as a character, and I was like, I think I've made my decision now. I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to do this. Yeah.
Tali was my second romance.
Yeah.
I think now I've done Liara, Tali, Garrus, just did Jack. I think I've done Liara twice or 3 times.
I've only played through the whole thing once. So.
I've never done Thane. I've wanted to do Thane for ages, but the recent playthroughs I did have all been Manshep because I played as Femshep so many times in a row that I just kind of...
I shouldn't have, but I watched them all on YouTube when I was playing it. So
there's so many, there's so many to play.
I think it's kind of fine to do that. Like I've watched most of them now as well, but that said, I'd played most of them before I watched them.
Anyways, let's continue.
Moving on.
All right, my next one we don't really need to talk about as much. I think anyone who knows me well enough knows my first pick would be my favorite games of all time. Man, I love Spyro so much. I was originally wearing a Spyro shirt when we started this, but I just got out of the shower and I got water all over it. So I was like, rather than pull off a wet t-shirt contest, I'm gonna get changed for this. I was gonna just choose our game, but I just said so many good songs from so many of the games, and they all have different kind of vibes to them. I feel horrible for this, but the third game had a secondary composer that helped along. But the main composer for these 3 games, as well as Spyro Into the Dragonfly, which is whatever, but I've heard the soundtrack's still great, is Stuart Copeland of The Police, the drummer for the band Police. awesome that he did this soundtrack. And listening to some of his instrumental stuff, like it all has this particular vibe to it that just brings so much energy that just works perfectly for Spyro, but has different layering things. Like there's so many songs that I could show. Like I wanted to show Horror Coast because it's got so much of that like background sound to kind of create the world, and the really cool like radio drum beat for the like radio tower vibe that level has. But the way that he made the soundtrack was they gave him the levels of the game. He'd play through them and compose the song in his head while he was playing it, so he could get the vibe for what the song should be. And it's like, man, and it works. Like he did it in such a sick way. So I could have chosen like 6 songs, but I chose 3 plus 1 just because I want to jam to it at the end. Because I just love it. That kind of show that really well. I think I actually may have chosen more than that. I think what I just said is a complete lie. I chose 5. Yeah, sorry, I chose 5 songs, but one of them is just for funsies. I'll start with no, you know what? I'm going to do Spyro 1 last because it's probably one of my favorite tracks. But like this is I'm going to show you one that kind of gives you the vibe of the game. It's from Cloud Spires, which is, I guess, the second level in Spyro 3. But if you want to play it optimally, you should really play it first because it's the only level that you can play completely without having to backtrack, but whatever. Because if you play the first
run strats.
Yeah, well, if you play the first level first, you have to go back after unlocking a character. But if you do Cloud Spires first, you can get enough eggs to unlock the new character, and then you can go back, and then you can do the first level and do the whole thing. That's what I mean. As well as eggs that are in the level. I play Spyro so many times. It's great. But this song has that vibe of like the music in the background kind of emphasizes what's happening. I want to see if you can kind of try to picture what the level might be called. It's called Cloud Spires, which kind of helps give it away. But just listen to the track and listen to some of the sounds in the background and see what kind of vibe you can get. And also, he uses a 1/4 progression in like 80% of the songs. And it doesn't get old. It works every time. Anyways, this is Cloud Spires. And there's some more tense stuff that comes in a little bit later, but those are in other songs, so I'll show you in that as well. Man, I love that track. I want to cover it, but I want to play that main line, and I don't play
so
very
fast.
I struggle to play fast. Lockie, if we arrange this, Lockie could play it fine. It's not a hard line, but I can't play very quickly because I'm too tense in my playing. So I'm going to learn to play it, and then we'll cover it because I want to play it.
Is that a cloud level?
Yeah. So obviously the name kind of gives it away.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't sound like it to me. It sounds more like to me it sounds like traffic, like a racing level maybe.
It might be the pace, but the setting of the thing is it's a cloud city.
I was going to say, I just saw Bespin.
Yeah, it's literally, and there's like machinery, there's like elevators and stuff. Okay. There's big fans in the sky.
Now, in fairness, I remember the level.
Yeah,
so
that makes more sense because I was thinking cloud level being like a Mario 64 kind of cloud level.
No. So it's like machinery in the clouds. The main like NPCs are weird fairy creatures, and it's the very wistful winds, and you can kind of hear that.
Man,
it sounds like steam machinery and weird blowing, and there's like almost a which is kind of like a metal in the like a being shaken around, and it just kind of gives that machine-like windy vibe. And it's a small thing, And then he's got that give it that pace because most of his songs have got that level of pace to it, and it's like, man.
Which it also really fits with the Spyro gameplay because you spend so much of the time playing Spyro charging.
Yeah.
That if the songs weren't fast paced, it'd feel very odd.
Yeah.
And just your comment before about wanting to replay the games because of listening to the music. Now I want to go and buy the remasters because I never actually bought them and just play through them all.
Well, I will say, funny enough, I was going to mention on the remasters. For the two of you, I would suggest listening to the original tracks instead of the remastered tracks to start off with, just to really experience them. The remastered tracks are mostly pretty good. Some of them aren't quite as good, unfortunately, but there are some cool things. They added in that whenever you are charging, it adds like a underneath. Cool. It adds an extra backbeat, which is cool. It gives it a little bit more pace. But I think just listening to the raw original tracks is awesome. Unfortunately, they don't like linger on forever. It does that thing where they fade out and then start again, which is a shame. But like, old background music was like that a lot of the time. And I think even some newer, not newer games, but games from like only 6 years ago still do that.
Yeah, there was. Ever played a game that does that? Or
I've played a fair few games that have done that, where the track just like starts to slow down, fade out, and then start again. I've played a handful of those games.
I haven't noticed that.
Oh, it mostly doesn't happen, but there are a fair few. I think it was a big thing on PS1 games a lot, but yeah, it's just man, I could rag on about this soundtrack for a long time, but you could hear that 1/4 thing that was kind of going on in there. A lot of the songs have that, but it works. Yeah. It just works in the context of every song. He does have some stuff that kind of brings a bit more variety to it. I want to show you Agent 9's lab. This whole thing is in 7/8 or 7. It's in 7 something. I forget. Probably 7/8. 7/6. Definitely that. 7/92. I don't know. I don't want to know what that is.
7-11 time.
I think that's a Dream Theater song.
The Adam Neely challenge.
Yeah, 7-11.
Yeah.
But it's very percussive driven, and it's got some very tech vibes to it because Agent 9. I feel like Agent 9 was kind of where the Ratchet and Clank thing started to come in, because this is obviously Insomniac, and this is kind of them moving towards that. And they put like Spyro 3 is a weird game. They threw so many things into it. It's great, but there's just so many mini games and other characters to play as. And this is their first person shooter. It wasn't first person most of the time. There is a Doom like first person shooter section. But this was their shooter character, and he's like a space chimp who can speak and is fast talking, doesn't shut up. But I love the vibe of this track, and that it's a little bit more quote unquote complex than the other stuff that's going on. And that kind of just like tech whistling that's going on in the background is like, man, it's such a strange thing, but it jams so well. Like I said, it's in 7, but a lot of those, like that da 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 da, just fits over it so well. And then you've also got the piano, and it fits really well over everything.
Yeah, it's actually a bit disappointing to me because he's Agent 9 and it's in 7, and
you're right.
Such a missed thematic.
It's horrible. No, I don't know what I'm talking about. It's just disgusting. Terrible game.
Terrible song. Yeah. Like, you're just wrong. Like the whole series, really. No, like in seriousness, I really do actually like the way, like you were saying with the stabs, he's effectively, for a fair portion of it, it's got like that 7/8 groove. Da 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 da. Yeah. da da. But then the stabs are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Change chord 2,
Yeah.
3, 4. So it's like 7/4 with 7/8, and that kind of overlapping thing, which means that it feels odd but flowing and kind of it's very cool.
Yeah. I want to show you another track. This one is from Spyro 2. And this is kind of a testament to the oddities that he puts in. This is Magma Cone, which I think someone suggested, so we should probably do this at some point. I really want to do an impression of the voice track that's in this. And this works because the enemies in this level takes place in a volcano with little like satyrs that throw rocks and stuff to try to destroy these big rock golems with like really low voices and pickaxes and weapons. And in the middle of the track, I'll play a little bit of the track for you, but listen to the voice track that comes in. But it's great. There's so many little additions like that that give the track so much character that suit the levels so well, and I love it. I could mention like the bagpipes in I forget what the level's called. I don't think it's Scorch. No, Scorch is the genie one. But there's one where it's like again a bunch of satyrs. And there's like a bagpipe tune. If you hear it so many times, and it's like, oh my god. So I want to go back to seriousness for a second. I'm only going to play my jam song for a few seconds because otherwise this will go on for too long. But I think a really great song that kind of encapsulates how these vibes match these worlds, but there's also some really great instrumentation and parts that have been written, is Lofty Castle from the original Spyro game. This is possibly my favorite Spyro track. It's hard to say. I've got a fair few favorites, but this one's just so emotive, and there's so much strength in like the piano part and the guitars underneath. And it's in 3, but I can never, until I learned to play it, I could never really feel the song. It just kind of blended into a cool piece of music where I could feel a beat, but I was never counting it because I was like, I don't care what the time signature is. And that's mostly because of how the melody functions. It's very clearly in 3 if you try to count it, but it just moves in such a strange way and it works so well. So check this out. But yeah, like that takes place in like a wizard castle, thus the name Lofty Castle. And it's just like such a beautiful track to start off with. And then it just comes in with like the power chords and just like that impact and just builds over time. And it's like, man, this is for PS1 games that are more focused on being catchy and driven because it's just taking place in a confined space of a level. And I just think it works so well.
It's also really like there's a real kind of, I want to say, prog rock vibe to all of it, which gives it this kind of simultaneously kind of modern and cool vibe, whilst also being, well, at the time, whilst also being kind of otherworldly, which is quite Spyro. Like the characters in Spyro, including Spyro himself, are all fairly cool. You know what I mean? Like that was always the vibe I got from Spyro, which was kind of Insomniac's thing too.
Well,
was similar.
they went the Sonic route where he had an attitude.
Yes,
He was
exactly.
like he was a small dragon with an attitude who wore sunglasses and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Voiced by the amazing Tom Kenny and Carlos
really?
Alazraki in the first game. They actually changed him because he was too much of a brat in the first game. So like, all right, we need a new approach and a new voice actor, and they got Tom Kenny to do it, and he's great. He's so
Did they eventually get a Elijah Wood?
They did that for the reboot. So a new beginning. It's Legend of Spyro games. A new beginning, Dawn of the Dragon, and Eternal Night.
That's
Those were
right.
out of order. But yeah, that was Elijah Wood. Had Gary Oldman as Ignitus.
I just remember that the voice cast for that was pretty huge.
It had David Spader as or David Spade. I forget how to say his last name. As the Sparks, which is such a weird. That he had 3 different voice actors. I've blanked on his name. The second one was Fry from Futurama.
Oh, right. I thought you meant like Stephen Fry, and I was
Billy
excited.
Philip J. Fry. I always blank on his name.
West.
Yes, Billy West. And the third one was, I think, Wayne Brady. I know who this
really?
is, but I forget his name all the time. Of whose line is it anyway?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Wayne Brady.
It was
Yeah,
a
he's so
interesting mixture of actors to
Yeah.
play Sparks. It was very funny. And they made a joke about it in the third game. He's like, I'm a little stiff. Voice keeps changing. It's like, damn straight it does. But I just love those tracks so much for the Spyro games. I think they just work so well for the styling of the game.
Yeah.
And it just has a sense of attitude to it. And I want to finish off on one last one just to kind of close it off. And this is purely because I love this song. And I've prepared a poem for it. And anyone who's played this game will understand. This is good music. We should all listen to it and have a good jam. Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to show that last one off. That's great. I'm not going to explain why I wrote a haiku for that. Anyone who plays the game will understand. Cool. Well, that's most of what I got to say. I could talk about Spyro forever, so I'll just end it
I
there.
could have
Cal,
talked about Mass Effect forever.
Yeah, cool.
Cal, talk.
Cal, you can finish this off with our last choice. I think we'll very quickly go through, like, for 5 minutes, our final song after this. But Cal, your number 1 choice, really.
Yeah. I don't know if I mentioned the title when I sent the links. Do either of you have any idea what it might be?
It's one or the other. I know which 2 games they are, but I don't know which one is your number 1 pick.
Okay. So you do know. Well,
Yeah.
My number 1 pick would have to go to Final Fantasy 12. And it's a big part of why I loved that game so much was the soundtrack. The game's awesome anyway, but the soundtrack, in my opinion, this is going to get me flayed in comments, is the best one from any Final Fantasy game. I'll always pronounce his name wrong, but it doesn't have Nobuo Uematsu, or however you say it, who did all the other ones before it. So Hitoshi Sakamoto, and I think he just did a fantastic job. It's a really different vibe, this game, to most of the other ones that I've played anyway. Like, it's super medieval.
With an I, medieval.
Yes, yeah.
Nice.
What's the dude's name that you play as?
Good game.
That's who you play as. It's a sequel to that game.
Yes.
It's a
Why haven't I
spiritual
played
successor. Yeah, so it's a really medieval Final Fantasy, but also kind of in like a weirdly futuristic pirate age. So like people have blunderbuss guns and stuff like that. Almost, and like one of the main characters, I would be surprised if Percy wasn't from Critical Role wasn't modeled off one of the best characters in FF12. But anyway, I'll probably start us off with the music that plays in the city that you start in, which is Rabanasta. And this song just makes me feel really happy because I had so much fun playing this game, and Rabanasta's kind of the hub world of this game. There are a few major cities, but this is the one that you spend a lot of time in. And the song is just it really sums up. It's a real desert themed game as well. So it's a city in a desert oasis. Lots of hustle and bustle, but outside of it, absolutely nothing, because it's just a wasteland where you can't really survive until you get far enough away from it. But the song's just really triumphant and optimistic, while also capturing elements of what maybe a city in this setting would sort of feel like and sound like. Again, it's that sort of conveying the image through sound. So
Yeah. That song screams medieval to me because so many aspects apply to different areas of a medieval setting. It's got that like pan-fluty kind of melodic stuff, which makes me think woodlands or pub music. You've got the ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba of like kingdom like presentations, like long string holds that kind of give like a temple kind of vibe, like a kingdom hall and stuff like that, all in one song.
Yeah.
I haven't played this game. I haven't seen anything of it. This is the one you gave me, isn't it?
Yeah.
I still don't own a PS4.
Play just a bit more, because you would write at the coolest bit.
That's
right. Right at the coolest bit.
There was already been so long. I'll play it for a little bit. There's so many more implications in that half.
And then it goes into like a really like just when you stopped it then, but
I'm not playing the
so
full
good.
song, Cal. There was like some Kingdom Hearts vibes in that second half.
That track to me screams Final Fantasy, is what it screams.
It screams Final Fantasy.
I haven't played enough Final Fantasy to be able to comment.
It's got that same, like, you know, when you, what's the city called in FF7?
Midgar.
When in this section in FF7, when you're dressed up in, like, when you've got the gun and you got to do the presentation and all that stuff.
With the city with the gun.
Yeah. There's like the fanfare that plays there. It's like that. It has that kind of weird, kind of pixie fey feel that
I hated that mini game, by the way.
That was awful.
The salute one.
It took me so many times to get it right. I was like, what the hell am I doing?
What about the walking in line? That made me want to kill myself.
That was worse. Yeah, it was like, the thing starts as you're trying to get in line. It's like, why?
And there's a reward for it, for getting it right.
Yeah, I was like, I don't even care. Screw this.
He came along, I think that was his first Final Fantasy game, and I watched an interview and he was really nervous about, you know, following who he had to follow, but I think he absolutely crushed it. Like, all of the songs in this game are that cool. That's probably my favorite one, just because of the joy that it brings me from exploring that town. It's kind of like the Citadel in Mass Effect 1, how you can explore and talk to heaps of people. It's got that. Nice. It looks nothing like it, but it's got that feel about it, which is why I loved Mass Effect 1 a lot, because it reminded me of that.
Yeah, and I mean, as we've discussed before, me and Cal are the type of gamers who will press X or A or whatever you're
next to everything.
Oh yeah, it's like that trash can. I wonder if there's anything in that. That dog. Oh, it says woof. Excellent.
Yeah. The trash can should have
like,
a potion.
give me the achievements. I've got to finish the game in 30 hours.
I do most of the things, but I don't, not to the extent that these two do. So I will miss a handful of things. There are some games where I'm just like, help. Like the first time I played Mass Effect, I spent no time in the Citadel because I'm like, there's just so many things that I don't know where I am. And it's
That's
all-
what I loved
Yeah,
about
I'd
it.
say me and Cal will get excited by that. We're like,
Yeah.
let's go.
The second
But
time through, I spoke to everyone and learnt everything. But the first time, I'm like, please help.
So
Get me
I'll
out.
miss so much important shit in a game, but I'll at least find the potion that's in a dump behind a bar or something, like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So the next one we'll listen to is Lowtown, which it might seem crazy because Final Fantasy have never done this, but there's actually a city under this city, and it's all the lower class are there.
Whoa.
I know, it's insane,
That's
right?
that's revolutionary right there.
Yeah. So it's not like Midgar, how it's actually like the top of it's in the sky. It's the sewers of Rabanastre. They're like those big tiled sewers, not like the ones we have here, but
It's
like
probably the more common version of doing it. I feel like a lot of games have done that.
Yeah,
Like
lots-
even
lots
Shovel
of
Knight has that.
yeah, it does. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so it's called Lowtown, and that's where you're from, the character you play as Varn. And that's sort of the slums.
Literally
but
called
it's-
Lowtown.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's because the game's, well, this area is like desert themed. A lot of the music's kind of got a Middle Eastern bazaar kind of street market thing about it.
That's right. I remember that now. I played like the first 2 hours of this game.
Okay. Yeah. So
Lowtown.
this song's cool. Yeah.
If it loads town. I feel like you just combined Rayman, Mass Effect, and Spyro with that song. Because it had had the Middle Eastern vibe, had that percussion, and had that Spyro singability.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's those two songs I chose just because you spend a lot of time, especially at the start of the game, in those areas. So you kind of get them stuck in your head, but it's never unpleasant. Like I still listen to this soundtrack all the time when I'm driving.
Nice.
Next one I'll do is the Arcadian Empire, and that Arcades is sort of the city that has invaded or taken over Dalmasca, which is where Rabanastre is. They're like
Is
the
it
bad.
full of arcades?
No, surprisingly. No.
Leave point even.
It's again, this city as well has a lower class portion. They've used that thing so many times. It's called Old Arcades, but we'll just look at the actual. But this one's like super, no middle class, so super poor, super rich, and the rich just wouldn't even spit on the poor people in this place. It's pretty backwards. But the cool thing about this song,
what are you talking about? That sounds forwards to me. It sounds like utopia.
Yes. The cool thing about this song is a lot of it, you get to this place really late in the game, but a lot of the music is familiar because a lot of the like leitmotifs from some of the antagonists are thrown into this song. Like all of the themes that you hear playing when you see the bad guys appear here because you're in their territory, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I love that referential stuff.
And it's almost got like a Darth Vader kind of thing about it, I think.
Okay.
Like Imperial March.
Right.
I feel a very strong desire right now to say it's a leitmotif.
It is a leitmotif, yes. I also resisted the urge to correct you.
Motive is the thing that everyone calls it by accident. It's wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I spelt it with an F. I just pronounced it wrong.
Yeah.
So after.
I'm starting the song. No one talk while I start the song this time. This is the third time I've tried to start it. That
Very
actually
Darth Vader.
reminds me more of a Star Wars theme from the original, not the original, from the prequel trilogy, like da 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 ba 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 ba.
The
I forget which one that is. Maybe, but that's what it reminded me more of.
Yeah, it's the Trade Federation. It's when
Yeah.
the droids are landing on Naboo and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of that one actually, which was interesting. But I love how it started off so jolly and hopeful, and then just ba 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 ba. It's like, what happened?
Is that exploration music or?
Yeah, that's the music that plays in the city when you're in. Like that city is really messed up. It's like that whole "there is no war in Ba Sing Se," like that kind of. Everyone's like that.
Okay. Yeah,
And
it's because I was gonna say it's very intense for exploration music. So
it's a really intense place, and you have to like. I think you're in there in disguise, and like it's super militant.
Yeah, cool.
But yeah, so I did send one more just to show a bit of a contrast, and it's the Eriut village, which is this sort of spiritual place you find in the woods where the how could I forget what they're called? Whatever
Chocobo.
race Fran is.
Damn it.
Vieira, the
Moogle.
bunny people, Vieira. And it's just a sick song.
That'd be a good way to close off. Yeah. Sick.
Yeah,
I like that one.
I can't work out if that or Rabanasta is my favorite song from the game, but
Of the ones you showed me, whilst it's probably the less thematically interesting, it's probably my favorite tonally. It's just really pretty, and I love the shit.
it's cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool place as well in the game.
Yeah.
But
Cool soundtrack.
it's so good. It really makes that game. It gives that game the life that it has. I think if you didn't have that soundtrack, I probably
When I have money, I'm probably going to get both of the next gen consoles, so that'll be a good excuse to finally play it.
Yeah.
Since it's the only PS4 game I own.
Yeah, just get a PS4.
Microsoft,
Yeah,
why
it's fine.
buy Bethesda and make me have to spend money on consoles?
But you'll have Game Pass. Think about that. So much on there. Of all the games you'll get.
Can you just get Game Pass on a PC though?
Yes, but the game list is different. It's
Okay.
mostly the same, but it is different.
Just think of all the trophies I won't get.
Swap to achievements.
No.
They're better.
No.
All right. Well, I think we've spoken about a good amount. We did all have a third pick. I think we'll just get through them quickly. We probably don't need to discuss them so much as just show off what we think works about them in about 5-10 minutes and then probably call it quits there. This video is probably going to end up being about 2 hours at the end of all that, but that's fine. It's a first episode. Just watch the whole thing. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Can always split it into if I need.
All right. Last pick, Lockie.
So, I actually had 5. No. So, look, the honorable mention that I did have has to go to Chroma Shift. Also, no. So there was actually another one that I was really playing around with, and I was really torn between these two. So I will actually mention them both, but we won't discuss them too much. There's literally a specific reason that I loved both of these. I could go in way more detail, but I won't. The number one. The one that I have written down is Skyrim. Now, it's actually not my favorite Elder Scrolls game. Oblivion is. Again, don't at me. But
I feel like I've heard a lot of people say that they prefer Oblivion.
It's a fairly unpopular opinion.
Is
Morrowind
it?
tends to be, Morrowind tends to be the most well loved from
Oh,
what I've seen.
okay. I was
Um,
comparing between Skyrim and Oblivion.
Morrowind's the only one I've played, believe it or not.
Yeah,
You'd think as an Xbox player that it would be the one that I've played, but nope. It's
Yeah.
because I was a PS2 guy.
I
Xbox
never owned an Xbox,
360.
but I basically played it at a mate's house because I
Yeah.
pretty much lived there for my teen
that's
years.
the same for me. That's how I got into Mass Effect. It's how I played Gears of War and Halo and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the big thing for me with Skyrim was, again, when that first trailer dropped, I had been playing Oblivion. Like, I got Oblivion in like year 5, and that was my thing. And then I remember a mate of mine, like, or maybe I saw it. I think a mate of mine like called me, because this was back when you had to call on a home phone to actually, talk to someone.
I remember those days.
Yeah, calls me up on the home phone. Is like, dude, new Elder Scrolls trailer, and then, in the old tongue, here's Dovahkiin, Dragonborn, and then the song plays, and I was just like, ah! There's a video that kind of sums it up that we probably shouldn't show here.
You're the Dragonborn! Yahoo!
Not that one. No. I'll have to share it later. But
I love that that's the same guy.
yes, that is very funny.
Yeah.
Didn't he also do like Eeyore or something like that?
Many people have done Eeyore. I'm not sure.
I think the guy who did like Parthenax did Winnie the Pooh stuff as well.
Probably.
But yeah, so the main theme. Enough said. Main theme.
Sick. That's such a sick main theme.
I honestly do think that's probably, in my opinion, the best main theme of all time. But in the discussion of like overall video game soundtracks, I find the rest of the tracks kind of blend together, which is the point of them. But they're just not.
I
as
legitimately
memorable to me.
don't remember a single song in that game other than the main theme.
You would when you heard them, just because that's
Probably.
their point. It's the sort of thing where it's like, that track that plays all the time in the like towns and stuff.
Yeah, well, I got every achievement in that game in like a week, so I'm sure I would remember some of them because I spent a week of my life listening to the music in that game.
But yeah, that main theme, just like, I honestly, like, I don't think I've ever been more excited to hear a piece of music. And it, like the covers for that song broke the internet back when I was back in 2011 or whatever.
We haven't done ours yet, even though it was arranged since before the channel started.
Yep. Yep. I think that was my first full arrangement.
Well, we could save it until the next Elder Scrolls game, but that'll be what, 2027?
No, don't be ridiculous. 2070.
Yeah, true. We just got to hold on to it for that long. We'll be alive then? I think we'll be alive. We'll be very old.
Yeah.
I don't know about me. You two might be.
I don't know about me.
All right.
I'm gonna live forever, so. I will say we won't play a song from it because I don't have one prepared or anything like that. But I want to mention it as well. The other honorable mention for me goes to The Witcher 3.
Nice.
Which is actually in large part because of the approach that they took to the music there, which is that they used traditional folk instruments from like Polish music and that sort of thing. So rather than doing the classic thing, going epic fantasy, let's get like big orchestras and stuff, you instead have this kind of really folky, but still super epic style of music. And like, there's this, CD Projekt Red just goes so like in depth on the detail and stuff, and that was like even with the music, it was evident there. They hired experts in things like the hurdy-gurdy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think it was the hurdy-gurdy. I can't remember. They were folk instruments I hadn't heard of. So it was super cool soundtrack, but it just didn't quite make it for me.
Yeah, cool. To be perfectly honest, my second pick was my third pick. I just thought it was more interesting to talk about because my second pick was the first video game I ever played, but legitimately has amazing music. It's Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening, one of the few early games that was not composed by Koji Kondo. And man, it is gorgeous. I feel horrible. I can't remember the woman's name. It was either one or two women, but she wrote the full soundtrack of that game, and oh, it's so good. And like, there's a great variation of the main theme. There's the cave theme in that song, which Cal has ruined forever for me. And just so many little things, and a lot of the boss themes are thematic, a lot of them based on that cave theme. And oh, it's just great how it mixes the emotions of everything that's going on. But I think the standout piece for most people is either Tall Tall Heights, which is great, which is, I think, another variation on the main theme. That da 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 da. It's really just that first interval that is the main reference. But a lot of people know that song that are Zelda fans that haven't even played the game. But I think the standout piece is very obviously the Ballad of the Windfish, which is just such a gorgeous piece. And there's two versions of the game, obviously, the original and then the remaster. They came out, what, last year or the year before? I don't remember. Or the remake, I should say.
It was last year.
And I'm going to play both because they're both very short. The first one is like old 8-bit music, and I love the translation of it into real instruments. That they just completely, like, they kept the score mostly. They kept it faithful to the original, but with full, like, with a string quartet, and it sounds awesome. Every track in the remake sounds great. I probably like, it's one of the few cases where I can probably say I overall prefer the remake to the original, as well as all the quality of life changes. But I just love the comparison between the two songs. So I'm going to start with the original
Cave
version.
theme and make your head explode.
The original version of this song. Yeah. So like, when you play games like that, you kind of have to use your imagination
It's
to
hard
understand.
for me to hear that. It's pretty.
Yeah. To understand how, like, nice and really well made some of these songs are. I think for me and Cal, it's probably a lot easier than it would be for you, Lucky, because we grew up with these kinds of games. But then you hear it translated into real instruments. I'd also like to point out, I think this is the only song that we've covered twice on the channel.
Oh yeah, we have.
Because I did, well, I say we, but I did my solo acoustic version of it in our first year. And then the second year, we did the Link's Awakening medley, and we did the song again. This is the remade, remastered version for the Switch version of the game. Yeah, like, oh, man, like, I love that full orchestration version, but I remember playing the original as a kid and just hearing, like, mind you, if I played this to Lockie, he'd probably scream, because it's literally just a high-pitched 8-bit single voice wailing of da 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 da, and it would, like, probably drive most people insane. But as a kid, where that was some of the limitation of music on video games, I was like, man, this is such a gorgeous melody. And you can hear so many versions of this song to really appreciate that melody. I would suggest playing the game or even just listening to covers of this song. That melody works so well. And there's so many. Yeah, links in the description. And there's so many different contexts that melody is played in. And it's just a beautiful piece when listening to those variations. Like there's a duet between Link and Marin, who's the main female character in the game, where she's singing and he's playing the ocarina. And it's so nice. It's just a
actually
beautiful
would
song.
say that your acoustic version is better. Bluntly, I actually didn't like even the second one.
That's fine.
That's I will qualify that just because literally for me it was that drum in the background. I liked everything else, but that horrible electronic drum made me want to shoot myself.
It's because the instrumentation of that version, you'd need to listen. You need to listen to some of the different versions of it, because that one, I will admit, is a more specific variation of it, because the whole thing is about collecting 8 instruments. One of them is a drum.
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah.
it needs those
it adds
instruments.
another layer every time you get an instrument.
It works, but in some ways it doesn't. And it probably doesn't make the composition shine in the way that it best can.
Yeah,
but trust me,
I would. Was really pretty from your
Yes.
Your cover, but then I heard that and I was like, oh.
Yeah. Well, that's what the thing is. Like you need to kind of interpret it your own way and listen to some of the other versions of how it's played. But it's a beautiful melody, and I love it. And a lot of the game has that kind of stuff. So yeah, I just love that soundtrack in general, and that song. Man, God, it's probably my favorite song in gaming. To be perfectly honest,
if you were playing lots of Game Boy games at this time, that also helps that game stand out a lot with its soundtrack.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I never owned a Game Boy. Like the oldest game I owned
Blasphemy
was Pearl. That's like the oldest.
Yeah.
Well, not the oldest game I owned.
I like that that you're a Game Boy, but you never owned a Game Boy.
I know.
The Game Boy Advance.
Yeah.
I used to tease my younger sister call her DS a Game Boy because I was jealous I didn't have one. And I used to say that the Game Boy Advance was better, which it is, but
yeah, no, the first console I owned was a PS2 Slim. Before that, it was PC only.
Damn, dude. My first was a Game Boy Color.
Yeah, no.
Mine was Super Nintendo.
Yeah. All right, Cal. Cap it off.
Okay.
Last pick. Nice.
Honorable mention for me has to go to Shovel Knight. It might seem silly, but it again, for thematic purposes and just the game delivering a sonic representation of what you're seeing on the screen, this one really does it really well. And it also, like the start of the game has this awesome overture that sort of uses elements from all of the songs that you hear later on, and it's almost like a concept album. It's really cool. And the way that it's all like done with the traditional sort of chip tune kind of stuff. Like,
yeah, I honestly think that of all the games I've played, it brings the most out of a NES sound card. It's brilliant. Like, it's amazing how much they get done with such a limited way of making tracks. And it's also got that same thematicism that we've been talking about with like Spyro and Final Fantasy and Rayman. It's got that same concept. Yeah.
So I guess we could probably start things up with. I might just go with the main theme.
Yeah, probably only have time for one song, really.
I'll just play like 30 seconds of one, 30 seconds of the other.
Fine.
Jack got 2.
I got the same song and they were like a couple seconds each.
This is a couple seconds each.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. And this is another one that I listen to a lot in the car, the Shovel Knight OST. It's so good.
Yeah. I think all the tracks represent their levels so well.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. I will quickly play a bit of Strike the Earth because that's probably the other most memorable song, but all of the songs are pretty memorable in that game. Cool. Yeah, some good stuff in that game. There's good stuff in all of these games, honestly. They're all great soundtracks. I love them. Well, this has been fun. It's a good little deep dive into kind of what we like about our video game music. I think it's a good representation of what we look for in game songs.
It is quite interesting seeing the difference between the three of us, in particular between me and you two, but like all of mine were orchestral.
Yeah. Well, I think Cal and I kind of went the same route where we chose one which was really thematic and atmospheric, and then one which was really catchy and memorable and energetic, which is pretty funny.
Another thing that I found interesting was none of my three are my favorite game, but they just win soundtrack alone. So I mean, they are among my favorites, but they're not.
Yeah. Well, I didn't end up.
My second pick, remember, I actually wanted to pick a game I hadn't even played. And there's an honorable mention I didn't talk about, which is Plague Tale, which again, I haven't played, but I love the soundtrack.
Nice. I've still been meaning to play that. I think again, it's on my list of, I think I have it for free with Game Pass.
Again, that's every game.
Yeah. I'd have to double check. I'm not sure about that one.
But no, that was good. That was good.
Yeah. It went way longer than it was supposed to.
It really did. We were aiming for an hour. It is.
I think this topic specifically, it's hard to do for an hour.
Yeah, especially because we had to cut in the clips and stuff. I mean, we did 2.5 hours basically in the end.
It'll cut down to about 2 hours in the end. But we'll probably have to pick something more singular to talk about next time. I think because we're all focusing on our own thoughts on a bunch of different things, it drawed out the length a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And like again, adding in the tracks and stuff will pad it out. But that's fine. Now you get 2 hours of the Game Boys instead of just one.
Yeah. Got to get those watch hours up.
Exactly. Yeah.
So watch the whole thing.
Yeah, please.
Please.
We need a blooper for the end. Oh no.
Not for this.
We've got the one at the start, Jack, in there.
It's hard enough to find. Man, it's hard enough to find bloopers for our mainline videos. I'm not doing bloopers for this.
Started with a blooper.
Yes, but doing one every week, no.
We'll see what happens.
Adam watches all of our videos all the way to the end, no matter what, because he does YouTube as well, and he's like, "No, you got to finish the whole thing."
Yeah. Well, hopefully he does the same for this 2-hour-long video.
He will. He does it for all of our videos.
This will be our longest video. I think our other one is Spyro for 50 minutes.
Sometimes he plays them on double speed or 1.5 speed, just to help him get through it. Yeah. But he makes sure he watches the whole thing.
Well, I hope you liked my Spyro retrospective.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, I think it's probably best for us to call it there because
thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us. Exactly. Let us know if there's anything you'd like to hear us discussing. Anything sort of game, music related, or I mean, really anything, but mostly, obviously, game, music related.
Keep it topical, yo.
Yeah, exactly.
We ain't here to talk politics.
Well,
no,
not on
thank you.
Among friends, not on YouTube.
Yeah. But yeah, so let us know if there's anything you want to hear us talk about. We'd love to hear about what your favorite game soundtracks are. If there's any tracks from any of these soundtracks we've mentioned that you think actually better represent the game, or just how awful our taste is, honestly.
Yeah. Honestly, all our choices are pretty shit.
Yeah, I mean, like just roast me for ME3, roast Cal for FF12. I'm pretty keen to not be alive when I've read the comments.
I think not as divisive as you might think.
I didn't choose. Everything I chose was quite safe. I'm good.
If I had picked FF8, I would have been in trouble.
Oh, look, I was pretty tempted to mention the fact that I started playing FF with FF13. And it remains one of my favorite games to this day.
Part of me wanted to
talk about bad.
Part of me wanted to talk about Crash to Insanity, which a lot of reviewers hate the soundtrack for, but I think it's really cool. It's
Oh, there you
all a cappella. Yes, sometimes it's pretty annoying, but I think it's really well put together.
Cool.
It suits the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's just weird for Crash, I guess. But
Yeah.
that game specifically, I think it works really well.
Anyway, thanks for joining us. Thanks for sticking around to the end for those of you who made it this far. And we'll see you next week.
See you then, boys
Bye.
and girls.
See you, dudes.